Hello and welcome to another edition of another book review. This week I'll be reviewing We Are the Weather, a nonfiction work by Jonathan Safron Foer. Talk a little bit about the author, go into a description of what the book is, talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish it off with what I'll be reading for next time. Jonathan Safron Foer is still probably best known for two books he wrote before he was 30. The novels Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and Everything is Illuminated. I've never read either one of those books or seen either one of the movies that were based on them. This is the first of his stuff that I've read. This is We Are the Weather, is his book about climate change and about vegetarianism and where those two things intersect. It is basically a series of his thoughts on the matter. They're very, very brief chapters. He kind of goes from subject to subject. Some of it is on a macro level. Other of it is more of his personal experience on a micro level. The stuff that I enjoyed the most in the book was that stuff on the micro level. I'd say the first quarter of the book, he talks about climate change and how it is unlike other global crises, how a lot of the things that make it hard to tackle on a global scale are kind of built-in human biases. He talks about World War II and what we did to overcome that. He talks about the differences between kind of our thoughts and understanding facts and our actions, what we do after understanding the facts. And I thought all that stuff was really, really good. So that first quarter of the book I really enjoyed. There's also another part of it where when he gets to the point where he starts beginning to talk about how vegetarianism and kind of animal husbandry, how those two things play a huge part in climate change, where he has about 10 pages of facts on the issue that are just kind of bullet point facts about the amount of emissions that come from raising animals for livestock. And I thought that chapter by itself was also really good. I think the parts of it that I liked a lot less were the parts where he talks about his own culpability in climate change, where he talks about, even though he's been a lifelong vegetarian, there's parts where he's kind of slipped in his guilt and shame over that. He has about a 40-page section where he has an internal monologue in his head. I guess it's an internal dialogue in his head. Goes back and forth about his cynicism towards climate change and again, more of his culpability in it. And that part of it I found kind of excruciating. That's a really, really long passage and kind of just keeps going and going and going. There doesn't seem to be a whole point to it of him kind of just wrestling with the enormity of the situation and how he's not sure if people will actually change and what he could do to make people change and all that stuff. I didn't really need any of that. I also didn't need to know parts of his family past as far as his family's escape from the Holocaust and kind of their dealing with suicide and suicide ideation. I had a hard time kind of forming that into this book. I felt like those things could have been taken out. I wish he had kind of just focused on more of a macro level book. So I enjoyed about half the book, and about the other half I had a hard time. Who I would recommend the book to. I think this is actually a really good book if you're someone who does have a hard time understanding not only steps you can take, but also society as a whole and how we view climate change and how there are inherent biases that we have to kind of get over in order to tackle it. I think this book does a really good job of putting that out. I think the facts that he uses are actually really illustrative of the issue, the size of the issue as a whole. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody for like a first-time book on climate change. I think a better book for an introduction may be Hot, Flat, and Crowded, even though some of that information may be a little dated at this point, but I think that would be a better introduction. This is more of a mid-level course, to use that analogy. It's basically going and understanding you as the audience. I think he assumes that you have some knowledge of the subject already. It doesn't do a whole lot of hand-holding. It basically assumes that you know what he's talking about. He doesn't do a lot of explaining of what these concepts mean. If you don't know going in, it may be a little hard to understand that, but overall, those are my feelings on it. I felt that I wish he had maybe stuck to more of the macro stuff about how to convince people to change and steps that they can take to change. I thought that would have been a lot better. There's a little bit of him refuting other articles that folks have written, especially articles that he kind of viewed as too cynical. I think he takes a couple of those on. But again, it's not very formalized. It's not like here's the chapter where I take that on. There's a lot of short chapters that kind of go back and forth on those things. So that's We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safron Foer. Next time I'm going to be reading The Marauders. I don't have the cover here, unfortunately, so I can't give that to you. But until next time, if you like the video, please hit the like button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. If you've read other stuff by Jonathan Safron Foer, any of his fiction stuff, please leave a comment in the section in the comment below whether or not you think that that's worth reading, because I am kind of curious as to what people feel about his fiction stuff. I've heard kind of various things, but until next time, bye.